Part 1. Understanding the tool before using the power. Welcome to Money Depth Insights. I'm the Finance Guide, John Array. Today, we are going to talk about smart ways to use credit cards, not from the usual angle of rewards, points, or hacks, but from a deeper and more practical understanding of how credit cards quietly shape financial behavior over time. Credit cards are neither good nor bad by default. They are tools, and like any powerful tool, the outcome depends entirely on how they are used, how they are understood, and how disciplined the user remains when convenience meets temptation. Most people believe credit cards are simple. You swipe, you pay later, and if you are responsible, everything works out. In reality, credit cards are designed around human psychology, not just financial logic. They remove the immediate pain of spending, stretch the distance between action and consequence, and quietly test self-control month after month. Understanding this is the first step toward using credit cards intelligently instead of becoming controlled by them. A smart relationship with credit cards begins long before the first purchase. It starts with mindset. When people see a credit card as extra money, problems begin almost immediately. A credit card is not income. It is not a financial cushion. It is a temporary advance that must be repaid under conditions that favor the lender, not the user. Smart credit card users internalize this distinction early. They treat credit as a payment method, not as purchasing power. One of the most overlooked truths about credit cards is that they reward consistency, not intensity. You do not build strong credit by spending more. You build it by behaving predictably. Lenders are not impressed by how much you spend. They are interested in how reliably you manage obligations. Small, controlled usage repeated over time communicates far more trust than large purchases followed by stress or delayed payments. Before discussing tactics, it is important to understand why credit cards exist in the first place. They were not created to help people overspend. They were created to smooth cash flow, enable convenience, and allow financial institutions to measure trust. Over time, marketing turned them into lifestyle products, but the underlying system never changed. The system rewards behavior that signals stability, planning, and restraint. Smart usage aligns with how the system actually measures trust, not how advertisements frame benefits. Another foundational concept is separating emotional spending from intentional spending. Credit cards make emotional spending easier because they reduce friction. The act of paying feels lighter when the money does not leave your account immediately. Smart users introduce friction intentionally. They pause before swiping. They consider whether the purchase would still feel reasonable if it were coming directly from cash. This pause alone prevents many unnecessary financial decisions. Smart credit card users also understand the difference between affordability and permission. Just because a card allows a purchase does not mean the purchase fits within a healthy financial structure. Credit limits are not personalized advice. They are risk thresholds calculated by algorithms. Treating a credit limit as spending guidance is one of the fastest ways to create long-term financial pressure. The smartest way to use a credit card is to decide its role before using it. Some people use cards strictly for recurring expenses. Others use them for controlled daily spending that is paid in full. What matters is not the specific role, but the clarity of the role. When a card has a defined purpose, decisions become simpler. When a card is used randomly, emotions take over. Another key principle is aligning credit card usage with existing income, not future income. Many people rationalize spending by assuming future earnings will cover today's decisions. This mindset creates vulnerability. Income can change. Expenses can rise. Interest does not wait. Smart credit card usage is based on money that already exists, not money that might arrive later. Understanding statements is also part of using credit cards wisely. Many users focus only on the minimum payment or the due date, ignoring how interest is calculated and how balances carry forward. Smart users read statements not to check amounts, but to understand patterns. Patterns reveal habits, and habits determine outcomes. At this stage, the goal is not to memorize rules, but to build awareness. Awareness changes behavior naturally. When you understand how credit cards influence decisions, you begin using them differently without forcing discipline. Discipline becomes easier when behavior aligns with understanding rather than restriction. In the next part, we will move from mindset into practical structure, including how to decide what should and should not go on a credit card, how to avoid interest without stress, and how smart usage quietly improves financial stability over time. Part 2. Creating structure. So credit cards work for you, not against you. Once the mindset around credit cards is clear, the next step is structure. Structure is what turns good intentions into consistent behavior. Most people do not misuse credit cards because they are careless. They misuse them because they lack a clear system. Without structure, decisions are made emotionally, often in moments of convenience or pressure. With structure, decisions feel lighter, clearer, and far less stressful. A smart credit card structure begins with deciding what types of expenses belong on a card and what types do not. Credit cards work best for predictable, recurring, and already budgeted expenses. These are expenses you would pay anyway, regardless of whether you had a card or not. Examples include utilities, subscriptions, fuel, groceries, or routine household needs. When a card is used for expenses that already exist in your budget, it becomes a payment tool rather than a spending trigger. Problems usually begin when credit cards are used for irregular, emotional, or aspirational spending. These include impulse purchases, lifestyle upgrades, or expenses justified by future income rather than current capacity. Smart users recognize that credit cards amplify habits. If habits are disciplined, the card supports stability. If habits are emotional, the card accelerates financial stress. Another important structural decision is determining how many credit cards you actually need. More cards do not automatically mean better credit management. In fact, too many cards often create confusion and divided attention. Smart users prefer clarity over quantity. They know exactly which card is used for what purpose and why. When cards overlap in purpose, tracking becomes harder and mistakes become more likely. A key principle of smart credit card usage is paying balances in full, consistently. This does not mean being perfect every single month. It means designing your usage in a way that full payment is realistic, not stressful. Many people fail here because they design spending first and hope payment works out later. Smart users reverse this order. They decide how much they are willing to pay in full each month, and then let that number guide spending behavior. Understanding billing cycles is another area where structure creates advantage. Credit cards operate on cycles, not daily snapshots. When users understand when balances are reported and when payments are due, they can manage cash flow without pressure. This knowledge allows flexibility without relying on interest. Ignorance of cycles, on the other hand, often leads to accidental interest charges and late fees. Smart users also create a habit of reviewing statements calmly, not reactively. The purpose of reviewing a statement is not just to pay the bill. It is to observe spending behavior. Patterns reveal more than totals. When you notice repeated categories growing quietly, you gain the opportunity to adjust before the situation becomes stressful. This habit alone prevents many long-term problems. Another structural element is separating spending convenience from spending authority. Just because a card is easily accessible does not mean it should be used automatically. Some smart users deliberately keep cards out of immediate reach for non-essential purchases. This small friction creates a pause, and that pause often leads to better decisions. Convenience should support planned spending, not replace conscious choice. Credit utilization also plays a role in smart structure, but it is often misunderstood. Utilization is not about fearfully keeping balances near zero at all times. It is about signaling control. Using a reasonable portion of available credit and paying it down consistently shows reliability. Extreme behavior in either direction, either maxing out or never using credit at all, can limit the benefits of the system. Another overlooked area is aligning credit card usage with income timing. Smart users match their spending rhythm to their income rhythm. They do not rely on due dates alone. They plan payments around when income arrives, reducing stress and preventing last-minute scrambling. This alignment makes credit cards feel manageable rather than oppressive. It is also important to understand that smart credit card usage is boring by design. It does not involve constant optimization, chasing rewards, or maximizing limits. Those activities often distract from the core purpose, which is financial stability. Rewards are a side benefit, not the foundation. When rewards become the primary motivation, spending tends to increase in subtle ways that outweigh the benefit. A strong structure also includes clear rules for exceptions. Life happens. Unexpected expenses occur. Smart users do not pretend emergencies will never arise. Instead, they decide in advance how exceptions will be handled. Will the balance be paid down over a few months? Will spending pause temporarily? Having a plan reduces panic and prevents small issues from becoming long-term debt. At its core, structure removes emotional decision-making from the process. It replaces, "What do I feel like doing?" with, "What did I already decide?" This shift is powerful. When decisions are made calmly in advance, they do not need to be negotiated under pressure later. In the next part, we will go deeper into how interest quietly works against cardholders, how smart users avoid it without feeling restricted, and why understanding interest changes how credit cards are experienced entirely. Part 3. Avoiding interest, building control, and thinking long-term. At this point, the most important thing to understand is that credit card interest is not a punishment. It is a system designed to reward discipline and quietly penalize inconsistency. People often believe interest appears suddenly, but in reality it grows slowly, month after month, when spending decisions are not aligned with repayment behavior. Smart credit card users do not fight interest aggressively. They structure their behavior so interest rarely becomes relevant. Avoiding interest does not require extreme restriction. It requires awareness and timing. When spending is matched to money that already exists, full payment becomes natural rather than stressful. Interest becomes a consequence of misalignment, not bad luck. Once users understand this, credit cards stop feeling dangerous and start feeling manageable. Another important shift happens when people stop treating credit cards as financial support and start treating them as financial mirrors. Cards reflect habits clearly. They show whether spending is planned or reactive, whether decisions are calm or emotional, and whether control exists or is assumed. Smart users do not fear this reflection. They use it as feedback. When something feels off, they adjust behavior instead of adding more credit. Long-term credit card success is also tied to identity. People who see themselves as financially reliable behave differently than those who constantly feel behind. Reliability is built through small, repeatable actions. Paying on time, keeping balances reasonable, and avoiding unnecessary stress gradually change how credit feels. Over time, confidence grows quietly, without effort or pressure. It is also important to understand that smart credit card usage is not about perfection. Mistakes happen. Unexpected expenses arise. What matters is response, not avoidance. Those who recover calmly, adjust structure, and continue forward prevent temporary setbacks from becoming long-term problems. Credit cards become harmful only when mistakes are ignored or repeated without reflection. Ultimately, credit cards reward people who think in systems rather than moments. They favor those who plan before spending, reflect after statements, and adjust behavior gradually. They punish urgency, impulse, and emotional decision-making, but only because those behaviors are inconsistent with long-term trust. When used with clarity, structure, and patience, credit cards can support convenience, stability, and even credit growth. When used without understanding, they quietly create pressure that builds over time. The difference is not intelligence or income. It is awareness and behavior. If this discussion helped you see credit cards more clearly, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe this understanding can help someone in your colleague or friend circle, make sure to share it with them. Education grows when knowledge is shared. This video is created for educational purposes only. For more calm, practical, and long-term financial understanding, subscribe to Money Depth Insights. I'm the Finance Guide, John Array, and I'll see you in the next session.